turning would have been done in a typical 18th century wood shop, along with regular furniture making. So when we look at inventories, historical inventories from the 18th century, we see a lathe often appearing in furniture making shops. And it would have been another tool among a variety of tools that they would have used in the creation of furniture. And you see that in historical forms where there'll be turned elements of an otherwise joined piece of furniture, or a joined chair, for example. So turning was just one more skill that would have been used by your average 18th century woodworker. The ITE program has been wonderful because the sounds of the workshop, the conversations that take place on an average day are something that I don't get to experience all the time. And those conversations are very forward-looking. They're thinking about the next project they may do or ways they try to change the field of turning. I'm being very creative. But for me, I'm always looking backwards. I'm thinking about how those processes were done in the 18th century and in the 17th century. And while I've done a lot of study in archival sources, learning about the 18th century craftsmen and what the workshop would have been like, there's no way to transport ourselves back in time and to see it for ourselves. So the closest thing we have would be, contemporary woodworkers who are probably doing this very similar kinds of things, although less prescriptive than they would have been done in the 18th century. They're much more creative today. They have a lot more ideas, possibilities, and sculptural forms that they can create that would never have been done in the colonial period.
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. How's this seem?
Oh, back in the 70s, my husband and I built a boat, a 36-foot ferro cement boat, which I think I was telling you about. And I really enjoyed the building. And wood turning came from that. It's fairly labor intensive. It's very constructed. I'm kind of envious about turners' work who's, they turn it all in one afternoon and it's done, it comes off the lathe and there it is, it's ready. It's ready to be carved or some other enhancement put on it. But mine is a little different. Because of the epoxy, I'm also waiting for the epoxy to set up, and there's various procedures that I'm using that just take up a lot of time. There's the turning, there's the inlay part, so before the piece is actually turned, it's worked quite extensively to put the epoxy into it. And then I do the turning, and before the turning is completed, I put the overlay on, turn the overlay, pop it off, finish the inside of the turning, and then work the epoxy, piercing and texturing, and then painting. And then I work the overlay and cut it to shape and pierce and texture it. Then it gets painted and put back on. Then there's a frame to be made for it. And once the vessel itself is finished, I still have the stand to do. So yeah, if I rush it, it's 2 weeks. If I don't rush it, it's 3 weeks.